The temperature in the elegant Roman restaurant seemed to drop 20 degrees as Elena Moreau stared at the empty space where her place setting should have been. The clinking of silverware and murmurs around the long table faded to a dull echo. 12 faces turned away from her, eyes fixed anywhere but on hers. Adrian Ward's voice cut through the air with a forced chuckle. "Oops, guess we miscounted," he said. The family laughed. That cruel, knowing laughter people reserve for someone they've decided doesn't belong. His mother, Vivian Ward, leaned slightly toward Adrian's sister, her diamond earrings catching the candlelight. Elena felt her heartbeat in her fingertips, every pulse sharp with humiliation. That missing chair wasn't an accident. It was a statement, the final chapter of 5 years of polite exclusion. She smiled faintly. "Seems I'm not family," she said quietly. Then she stood, her midnight blue dress whispering against the marble floor. "I'll see myself out." Elena didn't cry. She didn't shout. She simply walked out of the restaurant she had spent months arranging. Every flower, every course, every imported bottle of champagne had been her doing. The irony was poetic. The founder of elite events, reduced to a ghost at her own celebration. Outside, Rome's night air wrapped around her like a new beginning. She looked back once through the glass doors at the glowing table she designed and whispered, "Never again." Her phone vibrated with a message from Adrian. "Don't make a scene." She smiled bitterly. The scene had already been made, just not by her. She walked down the grand spiral staircase, heels tapping against the marble, feeling as if she were descending from illusion into reality. Every step peeled away another layer of the woman she had pretended to be to fit into the Ward family's world. She remembered the first time she met Adrian Ward, at a charity gala she had organized for Boston Children's Hospital. He had the calm confidence of old money, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. "You're the wizard behind all this?" he'd asked, flashing a charming smile. "My mother's been searching for someone competent for her foundation's events. I think I've found her answer." He'd made her laugh that night, the kind of laugh that slips out before you remember your boundaries. Back then, she mistook his interest for admiration. Looking back, she realized it was an evaluation, a man measuring how useful she could be to his family's image. When Adrian proposed 11 months later, Elena silenced the small, sensible voice that whispered caution. The Wards were Boston aristocracy, a name that opened doors, hosted senators, and decorated charity galas. Vivian Ward, the matriarch, had extended her manicured hand and said with a flawless smile, "Self-made success is so American." How refreshing. Elena should have noticed the steel beneath the compliment. From the start, Vivian's approval was a mask stretched over disdain. She treated Elena's business as a hobby and her achievements as party tricks. "Elena has such a wonderful eye," Vivian would say at luncheons, patting her hand as if she were a pet. "It's almost like having a personal planner in the family." Adrian never objected. "That's just how mother is," he'd shrug. "Don't take it personally." But it was personal. Every quiet slight, every accidental exclusion. Vivian believed Elena had married above her station, and she made sure the world knew it. Yet Elena endured, building bridges with poise, keeping her business afloat while navigating a family that mistook civility for superiority. Rome had been her test. Vivian's 70th birthday celebration, a week-long spectacle spanning villas, vineyards, and yachts. Elena had planned every detail, even covering last-minute deposits from her company's credit line when Ward family funds delayed. She told herself it would all be worth it, that Vivian would finally see her value. Instead, they had removed her chair. She crossed the cobblestone street to a quiet cafe opposite the restaurant, ordered an espresso, and sat by the window. The bitterness on her tongue steadied her thoughts. She opened her phone and stared at her list of vendors, all tied to her company's account, all under her authorization. Every deposit, every signature, every agreement bore her name. She smiled faintly. "If I built it," she murmured, "I can take it apart." Her fingers began to move swiftly across the screen. One by one, she canceled bookings. The 7-course dinner, the Amalfi yacht, the Tuscany villa, the private Vatican tour. Funds began reversing into her company's account like obedient soldiers returning home. Her phone buzzed. "Adrian, where are you? Stop being childish and come back." She ignored it. Another came seconds later. "Mother is upset. You're embarrassing yourself." Elena sipped her espresso unbothered. This wasn't an emotional reaction. It was a business correction. She had built this empire of illusions. Now she would dismantle it, efficiently, quietly, completely. She glanced at her reflection in the cafe window. Her eyes no longer looked hurt. They looked free. 3 weeks earlier, everything had begun to unravel. Adrian had left his laptop open in their hotel suite while he showered. A message preview flashed. "Can't wait to see you in Rome. Have you told her yet?" It was signed C. Her pulse had quickened. She had meant to look, but curiosity had become instinct. Within minutes, she found the thread, hundreds of messages between Adrian and Camille Hughes, his college sweetheart and his mother's favorite. The exchanges weren't just romantic, they were logistical. Plans. Travel. Even talk of a baby due in 4 months. Elena had sat frozen, scrolling until the truth became unbearable. That discovery might have broken another woman. But Elena wasn't built to collapse. She was built to organize, to strategize. She took screenshots, forwarded them to herself, and began digging deeper. Having managed the ward's events for years, she had access to documents most daughters-in-law would never see. Among them were draft separation papers prepared by the family's attorney, dated 2 months earlier. The proposed settlement was laughable, a fraction of what she was entitled to. And then, buried in an email chain, she found something worse. A detailed script for Adrian's planned announcement at Vivian's birthday dinner. It described a mutual and amicable separation, to be revealed after the second course. The missing chair, she realized, wasn't an oversight. It was the centerpiece of their performance, a visual metaphor for her exclusion. And they had expected her to play along quietly. That night, as Rome's city lights glimmered beyond the cafe window, Elena drafted a different script. One that would turn the Hamilton family's, no, the Ward family's, celebration into a lesson in consequence. She glanced at her watch. They would realize something was wrong in exactly 30 minutes. That was all the time she needed. She sent her final email to Marco, the restaurant manager, authorizing immediate cancellations and refunds. Then she waited, serene, composed, dangerous. Exactly 28 minutes later, Elena stood and crossed the street. The golden glow of the restaurant beckoned like a stage before curtain call. She entered through the service entrance, the same hallway she had inspected earlier during her final walkthrough. The air smelled of truffles and roses. From her hiding place near the kitchen, she could see the Ward family's long table glittering under candlelight. They were laughing again, raising glasses for Vivian's birthday toast. Adrian leaned to whisper something into his mother's ear, both of them unaware of what was about to happen. Elena texted Marco just 2 words, "Proceed now." From her vantage point, she watched Marco approach the table, accompanied by 2 senior staff. He spoke softly to Richard Ward, Adrian's father, showing him something on a tablet. Richard's polite expression shifted to alarm. He reached for his wallet. Marco shook his head and gestured toward the screen. The family's smiles faltered. Vivian frowned, her perfect composure cracking. "What's the problem?" she asked sharply. Marco's tone was calm, almost apologetic. "Signora, I'm afraid your reservations for the remaining events have been canceled. The restaurant account is closed." A ripple of confusion swept the table. Adrian reached for his phone. His screen lit up with a message from Elena. "Enjoy the caviar. It's the last course you'll be served." Adrian's chair screeched backward as he stood, scanning the room. "Where's she?" he hissed. Vivian's diamond earrings trembled as she turned to him. "What does she mean, canceled?" she demanded. Adrian's phone rang, her name flashing on the screen. He stepped away, pressing it to his ear. "Elena," he began, his voice low and angry. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Her voice was steady, almost serene. "You said I wasn't family, Adrian. So, I decided not to handle family events anymore." You're humiliating us in front of everyone, he spat. That's the point, she replied. It's poetic, isn't it? Vivian's voice cut across the table like glass. Adrian, fix this immediately, she barked. But Marco was already apologizing to the staff, explaining that their 7-course meal would not continue without authorization from the original account holder, Elena Moreau. Guests nearby were beginning to whisper, their eyes darting toward the once mighty ward table. Adrian's sister clutched her pearls. Richard muttered about legal action. The atmosphere, once elegant, now crackled with scandal. From the kitchen entrance, Elena watched the empire unravel with quiet satisfaction. Every camera phone raised around them captured exactly what they had planned for her, a public humiliation. Only now it was theirs. Adrian's voice softened on the phone, desperation creeping in. Elena, please. We need to talk. I can explain about Camille. She let out a quiet laugh. Explain? You mean the woman carrying your child? Silence. You went through my emails, he finally said. You shouldn't have. You shouldn't have lied, she answered. And you shouldn't have left your laptop open. That's called carelessness. His tone shifted again. Elena, this isn't just about us. You're destroying my family's reputation. Your family destroyed themselves, she said softly. I just canceled the catering. When she ended the call, she walked out from behind the alcove and approached the table. Every head turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. Vivian rose halfway, face pale beneath her perfect makeup. How dare you ruin my birthday, she said through clenched teeth. Elena smiled. I learned from the best, Vivian. Isn't this what you wanted? A dramatic exit? You just didn't expect me to write the script. Richard slammed his fist on the table. You had no right to interfere in family affairs. Oh, but I did, she replied. Every reservation, every payment, every contract was under my company's name. I simply adjusted the plans. Adrian's sister, Serena, sneered across the table. You'll regret this. When Adrian divorces you, you'll get nothing. Elena's gaze didn't waver. That's where you're wrong, Serena. I have everything, copies of offshore transfers, fake invoices, and the draft settlement you were all planning to serve me after dessert. Gasps rippled around the room. Vivian's lips trembled. You wouldn't dare expose this family. I don't have to, Elena said, stepping closer. You've already done that yourselves. For a long moment no one moved. Then she turned and walked away, her heels echoing through the marble hall like punctuation marks to a sentence she'd finally finished. By morning, news of the Ward family's humiliation had spread through Rome's hospitality network. At the hotel, staff whispered about the American family with the cancelled gala. Vivian had paid for dinner with her vintage Bulgari bracelet as collateral. Elena, meanwhile, boarded a flight home to Boston, first class, of course. She gazed out the window as the plane climbed above the clouds, her reflection faint against the dark glass. She felt no guilt, only clarity. For 5 years, she had been invited into a house that was never meant to be her home. Now, she was walking out with her dignity intact, and proof of every lie they'd told. Back in Boston, she returned to her Beacon Hill brownstone, the one Adrian had always called too small for entertaining. She called a moving company that afternoon. Pack everything in my name, she said. Leave the rest. Clothes, books, art she'd purchased before the marriage, those went into boxes. She left behind the wedding china, the furniture, and the memories. 2 days later, her lawyer received a flash drive containing the evidence she'd gathered. Emails, bank transfers, offshore accounts. Keep it secure, Elena instructed. Use it only if they try anything. Her lawyer nodded. They'll fold long before it comes to that. 3 days later, the Boston Globe published a small column in its business section, Ward Investment Group under review for financial irregularities. It wasn't front-page news yet, but in Boston society, whispers traveled faster than headlines. Adrian called her that night. She didn't answer. Then came another message. Father had a minor heart episode. Is that what you wanted? Then another. Do you realize what this means for us? And later still. The hotel is demanding full payment. They say you canceled all guarantees. She silenced her phone, closed her laptop, and poured herself a glass of wine. Actions, she said to the empty room, have consequences. A week later, Adrian appeared at her new apartment without warning. He looked nothing like the man she'd married. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw unshaven, his confidence stripped away. "You need to come home," he said the moment she opened the door. "This has gone too far." "This isn't my home anymore, Adrian," she said evenly. He stepped inside anyway, pacing the living room. "The SEC is looking into father's accounts. 2 board members have resigned. Mother canceled her gala. Everything's falling apart." Elena crossed her arms. "Then maybe it's time the wards learn to live like the rest of us, with accountability." Adrian's composure cracked. "It's your problem too," he said, voice trembling. "We're still married. My debts are your debts." Elena almost laughed. "Not when I have documentation proving you excluded me from financial decisions to hide assets. My lawyer calls that fraud. The court will call it freedom." He sank onto her couch, face in his hands. "I never wanted this." "What did you want?" she asked quietly. "A wife who could decorate your mother's parties and disappear when convenient." He looked up, tears in his eyes. "I did love you, Elena. At least, I thought I did." "You loved control," she corrected. "You mistook it for affection." The silence between them stretched until the rain began tapping softly against the window. "When is the baby due?" she asked. His head snapped up. "How did you?" "For months," she said. "I read your messages." He looked away, shame softening his voice. "It's complicated." "It's simple," she replied. "You chose her. And you chose deceit." For a moment, neither spoke. Then he said quietly, "Name your price. I'll give you whatever you want. Just hand over the documents and sign an NDA." Elena stared at him, almost pitying him. "You still think this is about money?" she asked. "After everything, you still don't understand me." She walked to the window, looking out at the rain. "I don't want your money, Adrian. I want peace. I want the truth to exist somewhere outside your family's lies." He stood, his voice breaking. "Please, Elena. You're destroying everything." She turned slowly to face him. "No, Adrian. I'm freeing myself from everything." He stared at her, finally realizing he had lost the one person who had ever stood beside him for reasons other than wealth. Then, without another word, he left, the sound of the door closing behind him echoing like finality. In the following weeks, the Ward family's empire began to crumble. The Boston Globe ran a follow-up investigation. Investors withdrew their funds. Long-time clients vanished. Vivian's name was quietly removed from several charity boards. Camille Hughes' pregnancy became public after she was photographed at her doctor's office, engagement ring visible. The timeline left no room for doubt. Their affair had begun long before the separation. Boston's elite, who once applauded the Wards, now whispered about them in private corners. For the first time in years, the powerful family became the subject of pity, not envy. Meanwhile, Elena's business flourished. Clients admired her professionalism and her silence. She never discussed what had happened, never mentioned the Wards by name. But word spread quietly through high society. She handled betrayal with elegance. Soon, Elite Events was booked months in advance. The woman they once dismissed as the help was now a symbol of grace under fire. Her staff adored her, her clients trusted her, and she finally trusted herself. When she looked in the mirror each morning, she saw not the discarded wife of a rich man, but a woman who had built something lasting on her own terms. 6 months later, a familiar envelope arrived to her office. The Ward Foundation's embossed logo shimmered in gold. Inside was an invitation, a request for Elena to bid on planning Vivian Ward's next charity gala. She laughed out loud, startling her assistant. "Should I respond?" the assistant asked. Elena smiled, tearing the letter neatly in two. "Yes," she said. "Politely decline. Tell them I'm fully booked. Forever." The divorce finalized quietly. Adrian agreed to her terms without protest. Perhaps it was guilt, Or perhaps he knew resistance would only make things worse. Camille gave birth 2 weeks later to a baby girl. Elena sent no message, no gift, no acknowledgement. Some endings didn't require ceremony. She spent her evenings at her new apartment, the city lights of Boston glowing beyond her window, feeling something she hadn't felt in years: serenity. On the 1-year anniversary of that fateful night in Rome, Elena found herself back in Italy. She was planning a celebrity wedding on the Amalfi Coast, one of the biggest contracts of her career. Standing on a sunlit terrace overlooking the sea, she directed her team with calm authority. "Make sure the floral arch faces the sunset," she said into her headset. The staff moved swiftly, following her lead. She had come full circle, the same country, but a completely different woman. As twilight bathed the Mediterranean in gold, Elena lifted a glass of Prosecco and looked out at the horizon. Somewhere across the ocean, the wards were still untangling the mess they had made. She smiled softly, not out of vengeance, but gratitude. Their betrayal had given her freedom. The missing chair that once symbolized rejection had become her reminder of worth. "To new beginnings," she whispered, raising her glass to the sky. The waves below shimmered in reply, as if the universe itself toasted the woman who had finally learned to set her own table. If you value stories of respect, dignity, and justice, please subscribe. It means more than you know, and it lets me keep sharing the lessons life has carved into me.